Hello everyone, welcome back to Christopher Shaw's update video. It's been a while since we made one of these. It's been a very busy few months for various reasons, which we will cover in a moment. But we just wanted to bring one of these out because it's been a while. We wanted to let you know that we are here. We're still at Christopher Shaw HQ. We're still all doing well and working hard behind the scenes. But we wanted to cover a few topics today, which is why we thought we'd come on video. The first we'll recap is going to be a quick market update. The market has been as busy as ever. The struggles are continuing in terms of certain aspects like stock. We're finding that it's very hard to maintain any sort of level of stock for tenants. The good news behind that is the rents at the moment are very buoyant and they're very, very good, and stuff is renting very quickly. So probably for the first time in a long time, it's been very good to be a landlord because the rents are very strong at the moment.
Indeed they are. Yeah, we've seen quite high rents, probably the highest rents for quite a number of years that have been
probably
been
record.
Around. Yeah, exactly. And in certain parts of the country, they're at the highest levels ever. It's been very interesting. We've seen lots of landlord buyers as well. Lots of the stock which comes from some stuff has been very much landlord centric. Obviously, as you know, we like to sell properties to landlords. It's one of our things that we do, and we're seeing more and more landlord buyers out than probably we've seen for a while as well. So although some are exiting the market, there are still plenty of people out there looking at investment properties, opportunities for various types, from holiday lettings.
Yeah, I think a lot of the buyers and renters that are pushing the price up are not local. So we have a lot of people from out of the area coming to buy in Bournemouth and recognising it as an affordable place to buy, albeit not so affordable for us locals. It is still quite a attractively priced town with obvious benefits, good rent returns. Great scenery, great beach, all the stuff that we all know, which is why we live and rent and buy and landlord in Bournemouth. But I think a lot of people from outside the area are definitely motivated to come and buy down here, and that is inflating things and causing sales to be quite busy and the rental prices to be soaring with no end in sight. So it's been a very good time. So if you have got properties coming up, I would be pretty confident at the moment that you're going to have minimal voids and very good rent on the horizon. Obviously, renewals we've been tackling quite a lot over the last couple of months and looking to renegotiate rents. So if you do have a tenancy coming up, that's something to be aware of. Fair rent increases.
Come to that in a minute as well, I think, because obviously at the moment the cost of living has been very much across a lot of news and media outlets at the moment. Lots of stuff has been spoken about in terms of that, not just rents and interest rates, but things like normal costs of food and fuel, and that rent has obviously been going up over the last 2 years. We've seen it in a number of properties that we look after, as well as across the board. Rents are now going at very high levels, as we just touched on in the market update. But it's something that landlords will also need to think about. Are rents going to be affordable for your tenants going forward, particularly on rent reviews? As Matt was just saying, it's quite common to review the rent at the point of renewal, but are tenants going to be able to afford a slightly higher rent? Is that going to be something they're going to be able to be sustainable for them going forward in the long term? And that's something to really think about when you come to review those rents. And we've looked at them and we can see what the market is showing us, but in real terms, is that going to be affordable? Did the tenant just about scrape by on the old rent when they were referenced to begin with? Are they going to be able to comfortably afford this increase, no matter how big or small that might be? There's a lot to be said for having a good tenant that's been in a property for a long time, but obviously costs for landlords are going up as well, and that needs to sort of balance itself out somewhere. We're seeing lots of people look at that, and some solutions are being offered in the industry. The industry's been very cautious with regards to this, and some solutions are that landlords might want to consider things like rent protection insurance. That's often something you can take out at the start of a tenancy, and is taken out on the property as opposed to on an individual tenant or tenancy itself. So you could change tenants and have the policy live. It's just that you might see that that's going to become more and more popular for landlords to protect themselves in case tenants find themselves in positions of rent arrears. So that's something to consider as well.
Yeah, I think one thing to be aware of is that because of COVID, premiums have gone up quite a bit as well. So those policies aren't as as maybe affordable as they once were. We've certainly commented on that internally, that those policies now are a proper, fully fledged insurance policy, and they do cost quite a bit more than it did pre-COVID, as you'd probably expect, with risks being higher. Insurance companies are offsetting those risks with higher subscription fees or upfront payments as well.
Indeed.
Moving on from rent protection insurance, we're going to move on to our next favourite topic, which is legislation, which is something we always try and update you with. And James is going to cover something which will be coming in this year.
Yeah, we've got quite a few bits that have come up in the last couple of weeks, really. Something that came out last week was an update to some legislation that's been in place for quite a long time about carbon monoxide alarms. Introduced in 2015, believe it or not, any property with a solid burning fuel had to have a carbon monoxide alarm installed. It was often recommended in a lot of gas safety inspections for landlords to put them in their properties, but now from the 1st of October it will become a requirement for properties with things such as a boiler, just a normal gas boiler, that a carbon monoxide alarm will be required. So that will be something to bear in mind if you haven't got one. I know a lot of landlords probably do, but if you haven't, then that will be something to bear in mind going forward. I mean, costs aren't too much; they're not super expensive, but it is going to be something which landlords are going to need to put in if they've not got one already. It's quite a nice and sensible thing to do anyway.
I think so.
But it will be something which will become law from the 1st of October.
And a good time to do it will be when you do the gas safety. So if you've got a gas safety coming up pre-October, then it makes sense to get it done at the same time and get a qualified person to put it in the best place for it. They're the best qualified. Failing that, if the gas safety is in date, then we just need to, with your permission, go out and get something installed in the property just before the legislation comes in October 1st.
Yes, so the other thing that was mentioned in the Queen's speech and has been on the cards for quite a long time has been the Renters Reform Bill. The big headline from that has been the scrapping of the current Section 21 procedures, and we've spoken about that on a number of occasions on this channel, about how nobody really knows what's going to happen as a result of that. Still don't really know too much detail, but we've been sort of listening to various industry updates, webinars and whatnot with people that are experts that have been involved in the consultation process, speaking to the government on behalf of the industry, and there's still quite a lot of detail to sort of uncover. From what it seems to be, from sort of some of the information that we've got from listening in on these things, it's been that there's a bit more of a focus on mediation. And although there might not be the straight Section 21, someone's in arrears, okay, well, rather than get a Section 8 notice and to get them out, let's use a 21 instead. There seems to be focus on mediation. If it was down to rent arrears, then that process will hopefully prevent that, if you like. And that seems to be a general focus across the board in the reform bill, because there might be things like landlord redress services as well, available to help in tenancy disputes and whatnot, if they can't be resolved through normal talking to each other and through normal channels. There'll be that available for tenants.
Of course, a housing court, dedicated housing court.
That's one of the things that has been discussed as well, and one of the things with the sort of the rent arrears, if you like, and what landlords might be afraid of is if the tenant builds up rent arrears and having to not be able to not have that Section 21 option, is that at the moment, if someone's given a Section 21, they can go to the council or authority or what have you, and they can ask for them to rehome them on the basis of them being given notice. If they go as a result of being given notice because of rent arrears under a Section 8 notice, more complicated currently, then that would be classed as making themselves intentionally homeless, so they wouldn't get the support. In the new proposals, there might be a mechanism which means that there's more openness with that. So if a tenant goes to the council with one of these new notices, whatever they might be, and it says that it's because of rent arrears, they might not be open to that at the moment. If there's only that option for landlords to get the properties back, it might present a fairer market for people, and landlords can then be more aware of people that do have a history of rent arrears and rent problems that have been given notice because of that. It's all part of this openness that they want to encourage. There are also, one of the things that they're talking about is a register for home standards, and that register will be open to everybody. Currently there's similar things available in social housing social housing sector, and that would be something which may include things on the property, such as EPCs, might include safety certificates and the like, which are just available on a national database of all properties, not tenancies again. So there's a bit of a difference with that, but it's something which again is being spoken about as kind of one of the things that comes up in this reform bill. Basically what the government are trying to do, it appears, is to provide a effective legal network for landlords to invest in and for tenants to live in, and that seems to be what they're pushing it as a more open, more transparent, I suppose, way of regulating the sector, and that's going to be big, but I'm sure it will go through lots of still bouncing around and everything with that before that becomes a thing. But it was included in the Queen's speech, having been sort of on the back burner for a little while, and I think that obviously things such as COVID and whatnot have probably delayed it a little bit, and it's very important that the industry and the landlords feed back into this so that matters can be considered by the government. But it does seem to be on the agenda now. One thing that has actually come out of what was originally frameworked for it is the thought of lifetime deposits, which would bounce from tenancy to tenancy with tenants.
I'm very happy with that bouncing out. I don't think it would have worked.
No, I don't think it would have done either, but that appears to have been scrapped. So that was part of the original proposals and doesn't seem to be in there anymore. But that's something also, there will be changes, I'm sure, along the road, even with what we've got at the moment. So that's sort of the renters reform bill and some of the changes that we might see in the future with that. Bit more detail, still nothing really confirmed on that.
Yeah, and then moving on, which we'll cover in more. We're not going to cover it in this video here because we're already kind of talking on is the upcoming changes to EPC regs.
Yeah,
we hammered that home a couple of years ago, and unfortunately, it means that we're going to have to kind of start that bandwagon again of kind of prepping you all for a 2025 EPC legislation updates. But again, we won't go into too much detail on that here. We're kind of keeping a close eye on that.
Yeah.
And we're starting to kind of verbalise this now to any landlords we're talking to.
Yeah.
Because I think it's good to be prepared way in advance of this one and leave it to the last minute.
There are a couple of videos on the channel already, so if you've not seen them, you can refresh yourselves on those. You can watch them on the YouTube channel. There's ones with people that might help with funding, as well as an update on what the legislation actually means for landlords from 2025. Important point on that, though, is if you are looking to buy a rental property at the moment, have a look at that EPC rating.
Do look at it.
A lot of people don't and hadn't up until now, but it's becoming really important for landlords to make sure that their property is meeting at least a C level or above, because otherwise lenders sometimes at the moment are saying no. So just be aware of that when looking at expanding your portfolio, because that will be something that comes up. You might see stuff that has the potential to be raised up to the C. Maybe that's worth considering, but if it can't, then be very, very cautious of what you're looking at. But that's just EPCs. Like I said, there's going to be lots more information that comes out in that very, very across the next few years. But just something to be aware of right now, and as a little tip from us.
So finishing off, should we talk office?
Yeah, absolutely. So you may notice that we're in a slightly different setting. That's because our office is currently covered in dust downstairs, Matt.
Yes, yeah, we're upstairs on our first floor here. Which is where normally myself, James and Amanda would be, but the shop floor has been closed for a good couple of months now to some quite big refurbishment work we're having done. We've got a couple of videos here that you'll see James have taken today with some progress reports, but essentially we are completely renovating and utilising our basement, which has been unused for the best part of probably 8-9 years. That has all been extensively damp proofed and tanked and is on the way to being finished off now. We're probably certainly past the halfway point, I would say, on that. So a little bit of time left, but we're still at Christopher Shaw HQ. We're just up on floor 1 as opposed to the shop floor. But of course, if anyone still wants to come, you're more than welcome to. But it's exciting. It's going to be a good space. It gives us the scope to expand if obviously our team grows. It's just a nicer place for the staff to work.
The shop floor will also look very different because we've cut a massive hole in the shop floor at the moment to incorporate a staircase,
which is why we've been shut, obviously for safety reasons. Why that hole was cut there. So that's going to be really nice, and we're toying with the idea of a little kind of reopening event. So keep your eyes peeled for that one if you are quite curious. A couple of landlords have already popped in and had a little nose downstairs, but it'll be nicer to show you when it's done. Yeah. So thank you very much for watching. Lots to take in, I'm sure, as aware. And we will keep you up to date with anything that goes on
And yeah, in the meantime, thank you for watching.
Thanks, guys. Take care.